Welcome to Essential Ingredients, powered by NextGen Purpose. EI serves up thoughtful conversations with industry leaders and pioneers who support a regenerative future for our food system. The stories shared by our guests are meant to spark curiosity and inspire informed global change. Good afternoon and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine Reichman, your host. With me today, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Hoda Mohajerani, who is the founder of Chakra Chai. Welcome, Hoda.
Hi, Justine. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so pleased to have you on. I'm so pleased to spend a few minutes to get to know you. It's been so lovely. And I'm excited for our listeners and viewers to get to know you as well and to learn a little bit more about Chakra Chai.
Thank you for making me feel so comfortable and so welcome, and really getting some belly laughs in there as well before.
Yeah, well,
before
hitting it's really nice to find someone that shares a sense of humor. Moving to California has been a challenge for me.
Yes. Well, you from New York and myself from London, with the British dry humor, it's great to have found you again.
We must have missed each other when I lived in London, but yeah, now that we're here.
Now we're here.
It's great to connect. So, well, I'm glad to connect, and I just want to welcome you and have you introduce yourselves to our listeners and our viewers.
Well, I as you said, my name is Hoda Mohajerani, and I am of Persian origin. I was born in Tehran and grew up in Paris and London, and then lived for 20 years in Vienna, Austria, with bouts all across the world, from Egypt to the Canary Islands to Central and South America. So, I've not seen nearly as much of the world as I would like to, but what I have seen of this incredible planet and all the rich cultures around the world has really inspired me. And I just love meeting new people and hearing new stories and also inquiring about some old stories. Heritage is really important for me. I studied comparative religions. I'm going to tell you a few things about what I've done, but I don't know if the question of who I am is the sum of all these parts.
Well, why don't you? I think what's interesting for me, for our guests, for our listeners, is to hear a little bit about who you are and how that connects with where you are today. Because there's so much to who you are. I mean, I have a zillion questions on a personal level. You live in all these places, and we could sit and have coffee or tea or oysters or whatever and go and dig into that all day long.
Yeah.
But I think for our listeners and our viewers, I think what would be great is, because you've had those experiences, and I connect with you on that. I lived in Mexico City, I lived in London, I lived in Paris for a little while. And I think it's all those experiences that brought me to where I am today. Right? So, I asked that question to you, what about those experiences is it that brought you to where you are today and helped you found Chakra Chai? Took me a minute to pause there to make sure I said that correctly.
Well, the origin story of Chakra Chai is its own thing, which I will share with you and our listeners in a minute. But I think if you want to scratch a little deeper beneath the surface, what my life has shown me so far is the humanity at the heart of every place that I have ever traveled to, and really that the only thing that remains is love. And so love is the key driving force for me as a human being, and it's something that I have spent now close to 5 years structuring and modeling within the company as well, to really truly operate from a place of heart and love, and that no matter what the fashion or the trend or the culture or the environment or the economic status of a person or society, it's our humanity and our inner capacity to recognize what is good and to follow through with that that really inspires me. And I've tried to realize that within the company. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful, because it's not so many people. I listen to so many people talk about their stories and what inspired them to begin on their journey, but coming from a place of love
Mm.
is just so honest and heartfelt.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings us to the origin story, because there isn't, at least in my books, there isn't any greater love than that between a mother and her child, and a child and the mother. And I had the privilege to know and bear and hold and give birth to, and unfortunately also let go of, my one and only child, my son Arta. And what he did really in coming to this earth, in the experience of the love that I experienced there, really was the greatest teacher I've ever had, the greatest spiritual teacher I've ever had. And that is basically why I've created this business, and why I, for example, won't compromise on the efficacy of the formulas, why I won't compromise on the business model in terms of our regenerative business model, our dedication to regenerative agriculture and sound, conscious business practices, because I keep feeling like it would be a disservice and a dishonor to my teacher of love to do anything that's compromised in that way. I want the planet and our customers to really experience something that is transformative for them in the most positive way, without having to go through any dark night of the soul. So I want to offer the result and the goodness and the transformation without the challenge.
So I thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm so honored that you shared that with me. And, one of the questions that comes to mind when you share that with me is that we talk about building these products in a regenerative way, and we talk about doing this so that it's better for the planet. And so often when we talk about it, I know what you're talking about. I believe I know what you're talking about, but often many of the listeners and the guests that, or the viewers that we get, I fear, don't necessarily know what we're talking about. So can you just explain that in a little detail for us, so we know what that means to you? Because I often think that regenerative often means different things to different people.
Well, you're totally right there, actually, because right now we are, as a movement, as a community, we are trying to define what regenerative and regeneration means, right? Especially with regards to agricultural practices as well as to business practices, right? So that definition is morphing as we speak and evolving as we speak. But for me personally, I think life and the ability to bear life and continue the life cycle is absolutely necessary for regeneration, right? And so any practices, whether they're agricultural practices like monocrops, like the use of glyphosate or fertilizers, etc., that deplete the land, right, beyond or almost beyond repair, oftentimes beyond repair, or pollute the land or the rivers beyond repair, cannot be regenerative. Even if it's organic, like they don't use the fertilizers or the pesticides, it's organic, but it's monocropping, so it's still depleting the land. It's not regenerative, right? The same goes with business practices. How are we modeling the growth of the business, the rollout of the business, so that it's not extractive and so that it can regenerate itself over time? And the same goes with the organizational culture, right?
Mhm.
How can we actually ensure that the people who are working within this organization are feeling nourished and regenerated and inspired? And, you know, do we push people? Sometimes it's necessary for all of us to wear multiple hats, especially as a startup, as a young startup, and to push ourselves beyond our comfort zones. And can we start integrating, for example, a power nap, let's say, into the conscious regenerative business model handbook and organizational behavior handbook? Because we want our people to be nurtured and nourished in such a way where we are embodying the results and the kind of lifestyles that we are proponents of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I take a nap in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so much better, and I feel so much more nourished and rejuvenated that I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. Where if I don't take that nap, I'm exhausted, I'm not focused, I'm trying to force my way through the rest of the day often,
Mm-hmm.
and not terribly productive. That
Well,
nap that I take makes the difference in the productivity and the way that I feel.
absolutely. And it's also about, you know, mimicking, maybe that's not even the word I want to use, because we are a part of nature. We are not apart from nature,
Right.
right?
We're a
So
part.
we are a part of, and when you look at natural systems and how the earth works and how the other sentient beings and animals on the earth operate, you know, they're not pushing themselves outside of natural rhythms, outside of our circadian rhythms, outside, you know, so we need to reintegrate that, because what's happened is that we've created false rhythms
Mhm.
for our bodies and for our societies and for our economies, because we're operating on a false sense of time. So essentially the traditional capitalist model is reducing in the hopes of eliminating time so that it can increase productivity and therefore increase profit, right? Reduce costs, increase profit. So we've created a synthetic, antithetical rhythm and paradigm to how the earth operates, of which we are a part, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we need to understand, as Zach Bush MD actually calls it, and I'm sure others have as well, we have to get back to the natural original mathematics, right? We
Mhm.
need to get back to the original blueprint of how to operate here
Yeah.
optimally.
Optimally, kind
Yeah.
of like you do with a child, right? When the baby's born,
Mm-hmm.
create that pattern for them to live by.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I was just going to ask you, oftentimes when people try to push through these days because they think they have to get all this work done, right? They're pushing, but they're actually less effective.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we start to read the 4-day week, and then somebody else was saying the 3-day work week. I'm sure you've read these things, right? They're talking about them more and more, because I think there's a reality to this. I think that there are truths to this, and I think that it just, perhaps there's just not enough data behind it. Have you seen much data?
Well, yeah, there is data behind it, but I'm not the best person to ask about the data. Uh, First and foremost, because I actually take issue with the fact that suddenly, it seems, we need to prove everything
Yeah.
through a particular scientific lens, which is the product in and of itself. That lens and that approach and methodology is the product of a paradigm that's inherently maybe antithetical to the kinds of knowledge and data that wisdom traditions, for example, are referring to, right?
Right.
So, when you want to do a double blind test, or
Mhm.
you want to look at something under a microscope, we're essentially isolating it outside of its natural environment in order to be able to observe it. But we know through quantum physics as well that our observation changes everything. I mean, we just can't do that. it's an interconnected web of life, and the wisdom keepers and the wisdom traditions and the First Nations, all of these traditions have actually had an incredible vertical connection, right? To the information, like with the chakras in Ayurveda, the sadhus were not behind a microscope finding out or doing tests in a laboratory to find out whether ashwagandha is going to affect you like this or like that, right? They were sitting meditating for hours on end, eating, I don't know, an almond, the metaphoric almond a day. And in their meditations, they were able to actually have complete viewing access to the anatomy of the human body and its connection with the rest of the universe. So I'd like to see that kind of data. And we do have that data.
And there's a lot of information on that. I mean, in between me being a startup founder, et cetera, I went to Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, just to throw that in the mix.
Yes, please do. That's exciting.
Just to throw that in the mix. So I like to keep things interesting.
Yeah.
So I love all, the readings that we could do to learn about all the interconnectedness and the history behind all this. And I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating. So I love that you shared that, because I do think, there's so many different perspectives and viewpoints on this, and to be able to be open enough to hear that. Not everybody's open enough to hear that.
Yeah, well, I think that at the end of the day, personal epistemology, the knowledge that comes, and experiential the knowledge that comes from our own experience, nobody can take that away from us.
Yes.
Right.
It's
and
true.
So that's, for example, yes, I can, for example, given the resources, send our product into a lab and then be able to say, in clinical studies, we have seen that 33% of participants reacted in way X, right? And when I'm doing a pop-up or a demo and somebody drinks the product and starts to cry in front of me, I am in Earth lab. I'm in the world lab. I'm in the human lab right there.
I like that, the human lab.
The human lab. It's like the woman or the man is drinking the heart chakra product and they start crying. And it's not just one person or two people, and it's not just the hippies or the bohemian conscious community. It's people from the industry in suits who, prior to drinking it, were thinking, is this hot fill? Is it cold fill? And they're standing there with tears in their eyes going, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling something.
That's amazing, though. But like that in of itself is like amazing to be able to share, to have that experience. I mean, I trust how I feel about anything. Like if I eat something and it makes me nauseous, I know not to eat that, right? We trust that instinct. So to be able to have that with your product and be able to share those or watch those or to have those experiences with other people is so meaningful, because the studies, you can read them, but it's not, to me, wouldn't be as powerful as watching somebody cry.
Also,
right? I mean, or even just be happy. Let's not. I don't.
Yes.
Want somebody
well, the crying isn't always a sad crying. It's because, so for example, in that moment, their heart is being cracked open essentially. Right, yeah, so it's the crying of release and relief and softness, right? Also, like you said about I forgot my train of thoughts, but I'll get back to it.
But it sounds like we're connecting, you're able to connect with your product, our ability to change or to open our way of feeling in a new way.
Thank you for, yes. And you helped me remember what I wanted to say. So, when we have, nowadays, it's become very fashionable to talk about functional foods or food as medicine, right? Whose medicine? Which medical paradigm, right? Because again, we're looking, even the term functional food, we want the food to be functioning. It's again about performance and productivity. Everybody take a deep breath all together now. Stop. Food is communion. Food is community. Food has been used religiously in Hinduism, in Judaism, in Islam. We just came to the end of the Ramadan period, right? In church, in communion. So if we want to change food systems, if we want to change our bodies, then we have to change our perception as to what is this thing that we're doing, right? Not just another remedial allopathic way to support myself with more adrenal strength so that I can go out there and be in the grind again. Well, no, we want to say, let's try to make sure that the food, even the snacks that you're taking, we can call our little truffles spiritual snacks, you know, it's like even the snacks that you're taking, can they be little companions to helping you shift the way you understand what you need in this moment to the next step of what do we need beyond this moment. And maybe it'll even become a little companion to an entire trajectory change, you know? Who knows? It could be the flutter of a butterfly's wings.
I
At
love that.
least,
You've connected. You really have. You've taken love, you've taken community, you've taken, you know, built a product and connected and been able to connect people with their heart, opening it up, and also made sure that we've built a more regenerative and planet and place to work. I mean, you've connected it all through what you're building, and it's just so wonderful and lovely. And
thank you.
I'm inspired, and it's just, I don't say that lightly, because you've connected everything together, the way you built it, what you built, and I would imagine that the people that work with you feel it as well.
Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned, first of all, thank you, Justine. And I would not be here without my team. I really wouldn't. But they are the most spectacular human beings who have really gone through their own personal journeys of transformation individually and collectively within the organization, because the nature of what we're building and creating here requires that of each of us, right? And no one has shied away from it. Everyone has leaned into the sharp edges and cut away what was unnecessary and shown up time and again to the best of their capacities. Yeah, I have a fierce little team, and I love them and I owe them everything. And yeah, we've got like, and I have my son Arta to thank for the vision, for the original vision, and then, you know, my co-founder and other team members who've helped me develop that vision and design it in a way that's viable so that we can support 7 different charities.
Wow.
That we correlated each one to a different chakra, right? Because, you know, for us, when we say heal yourself, heal the world, it's very real. It's like, okay, when I choose to purchase the root chakra, because we just had Earth Day, I'll mention this, the root Chakra Chai products, it's supporting me and my root, my earth element, which is associated with that chakra, my adrenals, my blood, my skeletal system. And it's donating from the top line to Rainforest Alliance. So every time I do this, it's for me and it's for the world. It's like that product is just our offering to remind ourselves that we are absolutely connected, within as without, above as below. So yeah.
I know many of our guests will be familiar with what Ayurveda is, but many of them won't be. So if you could just talk to that a little bit, I'd be most appreciative.
Absolutely. Ayurveda is the oldest form of medicine that comes from India. It's about 5,000 years old from what we know. It literally means Ayur is life and Veda is knowledge. So it means the knowledge of life. And so a lot of your listeners may have heard of the doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha doshas, which are like the different aspects of the human constitution. But then you have the chakras, and the chakras are these energy centers within the subtle body, which correlate to the subdoshas. So I won't get too technical right now, but essentially these energy centers can be out of balance, even if you're tridoshically balanced on a physiological level. And so the products address, if you will, both a physiological and an energetic support for the human being.
Thank you. I think that
Absolutely.
it's really accessible that way to get the information. And I think that it could be challenging when we have these conversations often and people are not familiar with the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So the other question I have for you is if you could just maybe talk to the 7 chakras.
I'd love to. Very brief overview is there are many more chakras than 7, but this is already enough. The first chakra.
Okay, before we go into that, can you tell me how many chakras are there?
Apparently there are over 120, but it's really, that's the product rollout for the future.
Okay, so we're focusing on
future
7.
centuries.
So, can you talk to me about the 7 chakras we're talking about today?
Very quickly through them. You have the first chakra is Muladhara, is at the base of the perineum, and it, on a physical level, governs, the element is earth, and it governs the blood, the skeletal system, elimination, the adrenals, and on an emotional and psycho-emotional level, it's about the primary fundamental identity, existential angst or support. And then you have, it's almost, if you imagine the lotus flower, how it comes from the murky depths and rises to the top. That's how you can kind of imagine the energetics moving from the first chakra up through the center of the body. Then you have the second chakra, Svadhisthana, which is the sacral chakra. It's correlating with the fertility glands and sex organs and creativity and the ability to have joy and experience spontaneity. Then moving up to the third chakra, Manipura, which is the solar plexus chakra. It correlates with the pancreas, with digestion, with your fire, your digestive fire. And it's a lot about manifesting your will and your vision into the world. Let me just stop here for a second, because when it's underactivated, for example, or diminished, you'll have troubles finishing tasks or being able to realize things in the world, or also may have problems with boundaries where people can walk over us or over what we want, but we're too afraid to say it. And when it's overactivated, the solar plexus chakra results in people who are very egotistical and can have bouts of rage and too much fire and will push their will forward too much. So it's really about being able to balance so that you're able to access your power and deliver it in the right way. Yes. Then you go to the Anahata, which is the heart chakra, and that's like the connector, the crucible between the upper chakras and the lower chakras, compassion, empathy, cardiovascular health, the thymus gland. Then you have Vishuddha, the throat chakra. So that's the thyroid, it's the upper respiratory tract, it's communication, kind, honest communication. Then you have the Guru chakra, the Ajna chakra, which correlates also with the pineal gland, memory, focus, insight, intuition. And then you have the crown chakra, Sahasrara, which is your divine receptacle, basically. That's so that you can receive divine directive, and it governs the hypothalamus, the parasympathetic nervous system. So like our product for the crown chakra contains blue lotus flower essence, black sesame, reishi, gotu kola to really calm down the nervous system and relax us into further receptivity to divine instruction. So that was a real marathon through the chakras.
Okay, but I think we got them all, most importantly. And I think that they will give people a background or a little taste of what you were talking about, so that when they do go to look at the products, they have a better idea of how to connect the product with the chakra.
Yeah, and what we say is, we have our motto, don't consume, commune. So of course you can just grab a Chakra Chai product, whether you're getting it from our shop online or in one of the stores that carry us. You can grab it and just have it when you're getting in the car or something, but it's always offering you that opportunity to drop into intentional communion. To say, okay, this is what I need right now. This is why I'm taking it. Take a deep breath, take a moment, give yourself that, and know that by giving yourself that, you've also just contributed to your own health and the health of the farmers that are growing the inputs that have gone into that product and beyond, So yeah, I hope the listeners will enjoy partaking in this in a different way, and I'd love your feedback.
I love it. So, well, we hope to follow you along, to continue to support you in any way we can.
Thank you.
So please, do keep us updated on how you're evolving, what you're doing, and we can continue to support you. And for those that tuned in and watched the whole podcast, or listened to the whole podcast and watched the whole video cast, Hoda has very kindly given us a coupon code. Do they still call them coupon codes, or is that back in the day?
Promo, that's back in the day.
I'm showing my age.
they call it, they don't
promo code.
Promo code now.
Promo code, sorry. A promo code. So that promo code, we will make sure to list it for you. I think, and then you will be able to access her products and get a special discount that she generously has given everyone that tuned in for the whole podcast or video cast. Thank you, Hoda, for doing that. But before we close out, where can people access your products? Where can they find them? Because a promo code without access to the products is very challenging to use.
It is, and unless you'll sit there and meditate very, very deeply to be able to get our website, which I don't recommend. I'll just give you the shortcut. It's Chakra Chai, that's ChakraChai.co. That's our website, chakrachai.co, and the promo code is Essential7. And you don't have to buy a whole 7-day alignment set, although I do recommend that. You can start with a single or what we call the tuning sets, which are a trio. So you have correlating chakras like the 1st and 7th, and then you're always given the heart chakra, because the love is the universal solvent and unifier and amplifier. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll make sure to include that in the show notes so that everyone has it.
Yeah, please follow us as well on @Chakra Chai Official. And I'm just so delighted to have been on such a heartfelt and authentic podcast with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that we were able to have you here today and to be able to share your story on our platform, because it really is such a wonderful story that both comes from love, and it should be spread around for everyone to hear so that they could learn more. And I think the message is honest and pure, and I can't wait for everyone to be able to watch and listen.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessie.
To learn more about these episodes and access show notes, go to nextgenpurpose.com and choose podcast. If you like this episode, head to Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform to subscribe and leave us a review. Visit the Next Gen Purpose YouTube channel to subscribe to our EI videocast and give this episode a like while you're there. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Next Gen Purpose, and connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Justine_Reichman. Thanks for joining us.